Good morning, everyone, and thank you again for joining us. We're going to get started here. We'll get started with a little bit of a slow start to give everyone time to roll on in. So happy Friday. Just kidding. It's just Wednesday. And welcome to Getting Started with Google Analytics. So today's webinar is going to be a little bit different than some of our other webinars. We're talking about a piece of third-party software. So with that comes a couple of caveats that we're going to talk about with regards to support and how far ClubExpress can take you with this, but we're going to give you all the help that we can to get you set up. We're going to give you a good tour of Google Analytics so that you can walk into it with a little bit of knowledge. But before we do that, let's go ahead and take care of some housekeeping. So to start off, all of your phones, your microphones are muted. So as I mentioned before, you can enter all of your questions that you might have on today's topic in our chat window. One of my favorite ClubExpress team members, Devin, is hanging out in the chat, and he is going to answer all of your questions. So again, you don't have to wait until the end of today's webinar to ask those. A recording of this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel, so be sure to check that out. You can also find all of our upcoming webinars listed on our website. So if you go to clubexpress.com/calendar, you can check out the upcoming webinars that we have on deck. We're going to be scheduling out our October webinars and maybe some of our November webinars too. So take a look at that and see what we're going to be talking about over the next couple of months. And you can even register in advance. You don't have to register in advance, but it gets it on your calendar and it gives you an opportunity to ask questions during that or prior to that webinar that we can actually demonstrate for you in real time. So if there's ever something related to a topic that you've always wanted to see or know if it's possible, let us know. We're happy to include something like that in our demonstration so that we can include some real world topics and make sure that those webinars are really helpful for you. As I mentioned, all of our webinars and our tutorial videos are available on our YouTube channel. This webinar will also be available on our YouTube channel. So that you don't miss it, you should make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Again, it's not so that we just get more followers, it's so that you get notified whenever we post a new tutorial or a new webinar to our channel so that you don't miss out. And lastly, if you are using ClubExpress and you have an opinion on it, no matter if it's good or bad, we'd love to hear from you. So go to clubexpress.com/reviews and choose from any one of the reviewing websites that we work with and leave us a review. It's really helpful for other prospective customers to see what a real experience using ClubExpress is going to be like. So take a couple of minutes and leave us a review. It's helpful for us, it's helpful for new customers, and we love hearing from you. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. So let's give an overview of what exactly we're going to be talking about today. So we're talking about Google Analytics. Again, it's a third-party piece of software that you could use for a number of different things. The biggest thing is that you're using it to analyze traffic and interactions, with your website. So Google Analytics is a free web analytics service that measures traffic to your site, conversions that you might set up. So when we talk about a conversion, that's someone going from a prospective or interested person clicking that Join Now button and actually becoming a member of your organization. So that's what we mean when we talk about a conversion. You can track user data across all of your platforms. So for pretty much everyone here, the service is going to be free. For large companies, there is an enterprise option, but rest assured, Google Analytics is going to be a free service that you can use. If you have a Google Ads account, you can also connect your Google Ads account to your Google Analytics account to track data and web visits from your ads. Now, the reason that we're doing this webinar now is that next year, Google is officially deprecating the legacy version of Google Analytics, which is called Universal Analytics. And if you've already been using Google Analytics, you're probably at least somewhat familiar with Universal Analytics. So after July 1st, 2023, Google Analytics will stop processing data from Universal Analytics, which means that if you've previously gone through the steps of setting up the dimensions that we require for you to connect your ClubExpress website with your Google Analytics account, you're going to need to go through that process and make that migration over to Google Analytics 4, which is the new version. So let's just quickly talk about that conversion date. Up until July 1st, 2023, all of your old Universal Analytics, and again, this is assuming that you've set that up already, all of that data is still going to be collected and it's still going to be processed. After July 1st, if you haven't set up anything for your Google Analytics 4 account, that data is not going to be collected. After July 1st, 2023, you'll have about 6 months, and this is according to Google, you'll have about 6 months to access that old data from Universal Analytics. So during that 6 months, you can go back, you can look at that data, you can also export that data. And we're going to talk about that export process towards the end of our session today. So you can export that data. Just a quick note, you can't re-import that back into your new Google Analytics account. So Google Analytics is really about looking at data now. To look at historic data, you'd have to look through your exported data. So just keep that in mind going forward. Now, if you signed up for Google Analytics after October 2020, you're probably already using GA4. And the way that you're going to be able to tell that is whether or not your interface matches mine as I'm going through the webinar today. The interfaces are going to be similar, but if you're using GA4, yours is going to look exactly like ours will in today's webinar. So pay a little bit of attention to that. So another thing to note, and we're going to talk about this as we go through our webinar today, and I mentioned this at the top of the hour, that because Google Analytics is a piece of third-party software, ClubExpress does not provide support for Google Analytics. So what does this mean for you? Well, it means that we're happy to help you with that setup process, the process that I'm about to go through now, actually setting up your analytics account, making sure that you have those dimensions that ClubExpress needs set up properly in your account. We can get that all going for you, make sure that it's looking good on our end, make sure it looks okay on your end. But as far as actually using Google Analytics, running reports and creating those visualizations for yourself, potentially setting up additional events that you'd like to see reported on that we aren't collecting initially, all of that is going to be something that you're going to use third-party help for. Now, we've taken the time to aggregate a really good list of a lot of free help resources. And many of these, Devin and I have actually used ourselves. So we can attest that they do actually work and they do teach you something. So we've collected a lot of those. We're going to tell you about all of those resources and show you where you can find them within the help system. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in and let's talk about what our demonstration is going to look like. So first up, we're going to set up Google Analytics for the first time. So let me go ahead and switch gears here. And I have Google Analytics open, ready to go. All I have to do is just Google Analytics, and I can go ahead and get started. Now on this main page, all I'm seeing is just a very basic setup. I'm already signed into Google, so we can see at the top right-hand corner that I'm signed into my Google Analytics account, or my Google account already. So when you're setting up a Google Analytics account, if you're doing this for the first time, it's going to be linked to your Google account. Now, what does that mean for any other administrators that might be in your organization that might have to access that data? Well, you can always add additional administrators or additional users to your Google Analytics account, and there's plenty of help to help you set that up. But to start, it's only going to be available to you. So I'm going to go ahead and click Start Measuring, and this is going to bring me to the very first step in creating this account. So the first step is going to be setting up and naming your account. Now, what I'm going to do is set up a Google Analytics account for the Northwest Bike Club. It's another one of our demo sites, and we're going to take a look at how we can get that set up now and how we attach that to our ClubExpress website. So within account details, I'm going to name my account. Now, to start, when you're setting up your account, it's likely going to be the name of your organization. Now, with setting up a Google Analytics account with your ClubExpress website, a lot of these initial steps are going to be a little bit repetitive. But keep in mind that for some organizations, at some stages, you might be adding additional websites. And again, that's something that's covered within Google Analytics help. We're going to show you how to set up your club's single website and how to start tracking data. So first off, we're going to name our account. I am going to call this the Northwest Bike Club. And underneath that, I'm just choosing what type of data I'd like to collect and process and share. Now, I can keep all of these checked. Maybe I do want technical support to access my account in the event that I need to reach out to Google's tech support for help. I probably want to maybe give account specialists access to my data. This can be helpful for you if you're a little more concerned about maybe the amount that is being sent out. You can uncheck some of these boxes. I'll go ahead and click next. And now we're setting up what's called our property. So the property is going to be the name of your website. It can be the name of your club again. I'm just going to call this the maybe I can type today. I'm just going to call this Northwest Bike Club again. I'm only setting up a Google Analytics account for one site, so all of this is going to be named essentially the same. Now, I'm going to keep all of this the same. I can always change my time zone. We are here in Central Time, so I'll go ahead and set that up. And we're in the United States, and we're using the US dollar as our currency. Now, there are ways to track financial metrics within Google Analytics. So we'll show you what that looks like in just a moment, and we'll talk about how that might be affected through your ClubExpress website. So we're going to talk about a lot of these things as we go on, so we won't spend a lot of time on that now. Now I'll go ahead and click next. And the third step is to talk about your organization. So under category, we can choose hobby and leisure. We can choose anything that fits our club type. So if you are, exclusively online, we even have a site for online communities only. Professional associations, law and government, we have a lot of options to choose from. So I'll go ahead and select hobby and leisure. And we're a medium-sized organization. Now I'm going to go ahead and select medium. You can choose any option that you'd like. These options aren't going to limit what you're able to do within Google Analytics. Just because you select small doesn't mean that your options or your availability of options is limited. It just means that Google Analytics might suggest different insights or different reports based on the size and scope of your organization. And underneath that, how are you using Google Analytics? Again, this is going to help Google configure your dashboard, configure what reports to show you at the top, what seems to be of the most interest to you. So let's say that we want to measure engagement. We would like to, let's say, measure app installs, measure lead generation. We can talk about measuring lead generation from a Google ad to your website. You can talk about people visiting your homepage, you can explore people visiting your homepage and going to an About Us page on your website. So we can go through all of these and check as many as we'd like. Again, it's not going to limit anything that we can do. Next, we'll agree to the terms and conditions. These are standard terms and conditions, and I won't bother reading them. I'll go ahead and click and select accept. So now we are in our new account that we've set up for Google Analytics, but we're not quite there just yet. We have a few more steps. So first, we're going to be choosing a platform. Now, we don't have the ability to set up our Google Analytics account with our Northwest Bike Club app. We're only setting this up for our website. So I'm going to choose web as the platform. And now I get to set up my data stream. So when I'm choosing my data stream, I'm choosing my website. The data stream is the essentially the pathway that the data is flowing from one destination to Google Analytics. That destination is your website. So we'll go back and grab the link from our website, and I can grab just the initial link here, demobike.clubexpress.com. Now, when I am taking a look at my website, I'm lopping off that HTTPS. All of your sites are going to have that HTTPS. I'll go ahead and paste that in and remove that initial section. Now, I'm setting this up for my demo club. I don't necessarily need to name it, but I will. And again, like I said, all of these are going to be the same name because you're setting up one website. Now, underneath this, we have enhanced measurement turned on. So enhanced measurement is one of the newer features of Google Analytics 4 that wasn't available in Universal Analytics. These enhanced features are commonly used measurements, and you can see a list of them here that Google Analytics automatically adds and starts tracking for you. So I'm going to keep those turned on, and I'll go ahead and create my stream. And that's the initial setup process. Now, to finish this off, you have to do a couple of really important things. The first thing is that we need to tell ClubExpress what our Google Analytics measurement ID is, because right now our ClubExpress website and our Google Analytics account are not quite talking to each other. Google Analytics knows that the website exists, but the website has not been introduced to Google Analytics just yet. The way that we do that is by grabbing our measurement ID and plugging it into our website options page within our control panel. So you see that you have a couple of IDs here. We are not concerned with the stream ID. We are only concerned with the measurement ID. And as an added bonus, it has this great little copy icon next to it. So it's really easy to find. So I'm going to go ahead and click this copy icon, and it's going to copy this measurement ID to my clipboard. And I'll go back into my Northwest Bike Club, and I'll go ahead and make sure that I'm still logged in. It looks like it logged me out. I'll go ahead and log in as Martin Smith. And as an administrator, I have access to my control panel. I'll pop into my website tab and click Website Options. And I'll scroll all the way to the bottom. And you don't have to enter in your Google Site Verification ID. Again, we'll only need the Google Analytics 4 measurement ID. We can see here that measurement ID. I'll go ahead and paste this in and save my changes. So that part's done. All of that relatively easy, just a few fields to fill out. And even the next step, it seems a little bit complicated, but it's actually a lot of the same, filling in fields, some copy and paste, and that's it. Now, here's my, excuse me, here is my North Demo Bike Club. Looks like I named the stream the wrong name, but we'll move on from that. It's a little bit of an early day for me today. So we have our data stream set up, and now what we need to do is set up all of those dimensions that you've probably seen within our help system, or you've probably heard us talk about when we refer to Google Analytics. Now, I'm going to pop over to our help system very quickly to kind of give you a tour of what I've done so far. So I'm in our help system. I can get here from a couple of different ways. I can go to help.clubexpress.com, search GA4 or Google Analytics in the search bar, and it brings me one of the top search results is the Google Analytics page. You can also find this underneath the website tab option, and there's a Google Analytics page separated from the rest of the data. So our first step, setting up Google Analytics, we've gone through that already. Dimensions. Now, the dimensions are how we tell Google Analytics and ClubExpress the specific data that we're collecting and what it means to us. So there are three separate dimensions, and these are qualitative data dimensions, not quantitative data dimensions. So these are going to be data categories. They're not necessarily going to be data that you can manipulate as though it were quantitative data or numbers. So at the very top, we have just a brief description of the three data dimensions that we are adding, or their custom dimensions. And underneath that, we have this great little table that I am going to flip back and forth between so that I can copy and paste. It is important that when you're setting these up, that they be spelled correctly, which is why I am not leaving anything to chance today. So in my Google Analytics account, and again, this is the bike club that I've just set up, I'm going to use this little back arrow. And that's going to expand this menu, and it's going to take me back to my admin page. Now, another way that I could have done that is just by clicking this admin button. Now, right here is where all of your administrative items are going to be set up. This is where you can manage your account access. You can add additional people with other Google accounts. So by adding someone's Gmail address, you can add them as a user to your account. In addition to that, there's an additional thing that I want to point out on this admin page before we leave this page, because we're probably not going to come back here today. Underneath my property items, I have reporting identity. Now, this is another interesting thing that Google Analytics 4 has introduced that's a little bit different than Universal Analytics. Now, what you're essentially tracking across your site are users. So when you have users that are coming to your site, they can be identified in a handful of different ways. And Google essentially goes through each of these ways before it decides who that person is. And when we say who that person is, we don't mean this is Samantha Horia visiting your website from Schaumburg. We mean that they can tell that it's a user from Schaumburg. And with a couple of clicks, you could actually tell my gender, my age range, maybe my interests, depending on how much data is being collected from my browser. So at the very top is user ID. User ID is the first way that Google Analytics tries to identify the user. Now, the reason we're trying to identify users is so that we can tell when the same person is visiting the same sets of pages, so that we don't count it more than one time. You want to see unique visits. You do sometimes want to see repeated traffic, maybe over a time period. Maybe you have a page on your website that shows the results of a race or the results of a competition, and people are supposed to repeatedly visit that page. But what Google is essentially tracking is, let's say someone visits your page and constantly is going around your site, visiting a bunch of different pages. Google counts that as what's called a session. And how many pages, how long did someone spend on your site? How many pages did they visit? What pathway did they take? Where did they get to from the next page they were on? So a user ID is something that you supply. And that's likely not something that you're going to supply, and we won't supply user IDs. So the first option is really not something that Google's going to be able to use. The next is Google Signals. Google Signals are exactly what you see here. I'm signed in to Google. So Google knows who I am and knows what websites I'm visiting and can track that and feed that data into your Google Analytics account. Again, you will not see that it's Samantha Horia visiting who's signed into her Google account. You're only going to see that I'm an identified user, and that at least Google is able to track me very effectively across your website. The next and the last option that Google will try, if they don't have a user ID, if I'm not signed into my Google account, is the device ID. And that's just going off of an IP address, or, telling that you're from a mobile phone, from a desktop. It's just going off of what device you're using. And Google's able to tell that it's the same user based on it being the same device. And the last option isn't turned on automatically. It turns on its own when you have enough data to fill that gap, and it's called modeling. What modeling is just a very nice word for an educated guess. So I would venture to say that Google's guesses are probably far more educated than my own. So modeling happens and is turned on when your Google Analytics account has had time to collect enough data to actually create a projected model. So with all of these options, you have the ability to go into data settings and data collection to turn on Google signals. So again, we're in reporting identity, and we have just a handful of options that are set up for us. So you can see that even while we're going through Google Analytics, Google is providing help for us. Now, let's talk about configuring those dimensions. And in order to do that, we see that we have this flyout menu. We're in our admin section. I'm going to pop right up to our configure option. And within configure, the first stop that I'm going to go to would be custom definitions. Within custom definitions, that's where I'm creating my custom dimensions. And we can even see right at the top, there's a really helpful note from Google in a nice blue box that I can create and manage my custom dimensions in custom definitions. So I'll go ahead and click custom definitions. And I can start to add my definitions. And I'm going to be adding 3. For the sake of time, I'm just going to add one of them. And the process is the same for all 3. So I'll go ahead and say create a custom dimension. Now this opens up this nice little flyout menu on the right-hand side. And I am going to start copying and pasting all of the information from my help screen into this page here. I'm not going to bother typing it in. So the first thing that I need to grab is my dimension name. So I have my Google Analytics help screen open in a different tab. I'll pop right back over, click that. So we have our dimension name. I'll go ahead and highlight, Control C on my keyboard, or I can always right click and select copy. I'll go back into my analytics tab and paste that into dimension name. The scope, the description, and the event parameter are remaining. So we'll go back into my Google Analytics account, or excuse me, my Google Analytics help screen. All of these are going to be events. I can skip over that. The next is my description, and it's the module name. I'll go ahead and copy that. And I'll enter that into my description. And the last is an event parameter. So this is, what is this event that I'm setting up? What is it actually linked to? These parameters are pre-configured by Google Analytics. So I'll go ahead and copy this, and I'll go ahead and paste this in. And I'll go ahead and save. And now I have my dimensions set up. And it was really that easy. So we do the same process for the additional dimensions. We'll go right back into our analytics tab, and we continue with dimension 2 and dimension 3. Now, once you have all of that set up, your Google Analytics account isn't ready to go right away. There is about a 48-hour lag time between setting up your Google Analytics account and when you will actually see data start to process on your site. So if I go ahead and select the Bike Club and I go back into reports, I'm not seeing anything. I have just set this up mere minutes ago. I probably won't see anything tomorrow either. So it's important to note that while it's unfortunate, you won't necessarily know if you've done everything right until a couple of days later. Now, if you are looking at this and you're concerned because maybe it's been a day, give it 2. Give it 2 days, have a cup of coffee. And then after 2 days, if it's not set up, if it's not feeding data, you're still seeing that you have no users, you have nothing coming in, give us a call and we'll make sure that you've set up those dimensions properly. We'll make sure that that measurement ID has been properly pasted into place. So that's why, we try to push copying and pasting is going to be one of your best friends here. A simple character mistake could be the one thing that throws you off. So again, before you think that you haven't done something correctly, give yourself a couple of days and check back at your account, make sure that your data is processing. Now, because we have just set up our Northwest Bike Club, and because it's not going to be processing data, I'm going to go ahead and switch to a Google Analytics account that we have set up already. We set it up a few weeks ago on our demo balloon club. So we're going to go ahead and visit that to take care of the rest of our webinar today so that we can actually see data coming in. Now, this is essentially the homepage of your Google Analytics account that you would set up. It's a dashboard that's going to include a lot of different reports and cards based on some of the data indicators that you said you wanted to collect at that initial stage. Now, again, these are things that Google is just providing to you because it thinks that based on what you want to see, based on the knowledge you want to collect, this is the information that is going to be most relevant to you. So let's just quickly go back and we'll take a quick little snapshot of what we have done so far today and what we're going to be looking at next up. So with our reports section, this is where you're going to see a lot of those cards and a lot of that pre-measured data. So this is where a lot of the basis for what you want to do in Google Analytics is going to come from. The reports section is not something that can necessarily be manipulated as much as some of the other areas of Google Analytics, but you can think of that as though they're built-in reports. And you can think of some other areas that we're going to explore today as your ad hoc reporting, if you will, where you can build customized reports. So let's go ahead and go back into our Google Analytics account and take a look at some of our reports here. And we're going to take a look at some additional data that we can pull. First up, our report snapshot. We have a snapshot of our viewers. We also have demographic data. We can see where our users are coming from. We can see activity over time. If we scroll down a little bit further, we can see the pages that they're visiting and which pages seem to be getting the most traffic. And if we scroll down even further, we can see events that we've set up and we can see conversions that we've created. Now, on the left-hand side, and again, we're in the reports section. On the left-hand side, we have a lot of different options, and they're going to drill down into some of the cards that you see here. So first up, we have our real-time option. Real-time will show you data on your site from anywhere from 5 seconds ago to 30 minutes ago. It's pretty accurate, and it's something that can give you a little bit of data, but the real-time shot is really just to measure a handful of different things. Of course, you can see real-time users. You can also see conversions that may have happened in a recent time period. The real-time data section isn't really going to be super useful unless you're doing a little bit of debugging. Now, next up, we have our acquisition, engagement, and monetization. We're going to talk about monetization in a little bit of a different way because it's not necessarily something that you can aggregate from your ClubExpress site, but we do have ways that you can still capture that data. So in the acquisition section, this is where you're going to see, how did I get these site visitors? Where are they coming from? How are they finding my site? If we scroll down, we can see that most people are getting to the Northwest Balloon Club by directly typing in the website into their URL bar. Some people are getting it from organic search. So if someone is Googling your club and clicking on the option from within Google, that's going to be an organic search option. Now, if you have Google Ads set up and you want to see how many people are visiting your website from an ad that you have listed, that's a separate option. And again, we do have some help information to show you how to set up that link. We have user acquisition and traffic acquisition. So where are users coming from over time? Next up, we have engagement. Engagement is, okay, now I have the users. What are they doing on my site? Where are they clicking? Where are they going? What pages are they visiting? And for how long? So if we go to pages and screens underneath our engagement option, we can see a pretty detailed outlook of how many people are visiting each page, how many of those are new visitors, unique visitors, how long are they spending on that page, how many times are they scrolling on that page. Imagine that you have a custom page that you've created where you have a lot of information, maybe a lot of bios, maybe a lot of expandable text, and you're seeing that maybe people are getting about halfway through the page and they're not really going through the rest of the page. They're only spending about a minute on the page when you know that if they were reading it, they should be spending at least 6. Maybe that's a signal to, change the way some of your pages are laid out. There are a lot of different ways that you can take a look at this data, a lot of different ways that you can look at what that data means to you, to your organization, and to the way that you would like to maybe update your website, maybe reconfigure your menu and the way that your users are navigating your website. So with monetization, your ClubExpress site, while it is something that you might use to process payments, your users might visit your website to purchase something from the storefront, we aren't sending financial data to your Google Analytics account. If you're using Google Ads, your Google Ads will have a monetization cost associated with them. But when someone's going to your storefront and purchasing something, you can see that they visited a page on your storefront, but you won't necessarily be able to connect that with your purchase. And we do have plenty of financial reports available within your ClubExpress site. So you're able to find your financial data, but you're not going to be able to see that within your Google Analytics account. Now, underneath my report snapshot section, I have some user information. Now, when I go into user demographics and my demographics overview, I can see, again, where my users are coming from. I can see where in the world they're coming from, what language they might speak. Now, at the top of every single one of these pages, you've seen the same header for each one of them. This is just some automatic filtering that happens from Google when you're visiting each one of these sections. Now, at the top here, I can add additional comparisons. On the right, I have a handful of buttons here. So first off, whenever I've been looking at any one of these pages, I have been looking from a specific date range, and I can change that date range to anything that I'd like. Now, bearing in mind that this particular site did not have a Google Analytics account until about a month ago, so I really can only go back so far. However, the longer you hold your account, the longer you're collecting data, the further back you can go to create a comparison for yourself. Underneath that, I can edit my comparisons. I can share a specific report that I'd like to share with someone. I can view my insights. Insights are things that Google is going to provide to you based on the data that's being collected, based on how you manipulate that data. So I don't have a lot of insights right now, again, because our account is still pretty fresh. However, in some other Google Analytics accounts that I monitor, there are a lot of insights that are constantly popping up. They have great descriptors. They always have extra information, and they're a fantastic way to really immerse yourself into what Google Analytics can do. For myself personally, even if it's not an insight that I think is relevant to me, I always just take a peek because it can't hurt to learn. And to the right, I can start customizing my reports. Now, underneath my demographics overview, I can view my demographics details. And this is going to give me that same sort of outlook with my pages and screens where I get really detailed of how much time people are spending on my site. And underneath that, I also have my tech overview and my tech details. Now, let's talk about user demographics and user tech. Both of these are items that you have to turn on. We have that within our help items where you go to turn on collecting demographic and tech information. It's not information that is collected automatically. So if you are interested in seeing where your users are coming from, what their interests might be. If you're interested in seeing what browsers they're using, if they're navigating your website from a mobile device or a desktop, looks like most people are visiting the demo club from a desktop. Now, this is all within our reports section. And each of these reports that you were looking at can be slightly manipulated. So underneath here, you can see that we can change some of the dimensions that are being used to describe the data that we're seeing. We can change our metrics. We can change the time frame. And if we select this edit icon, or what is to us the edit icon, it's to customize your report. I get a flyout window on the right-hand side that lets me manipulate some of the items that I'm seeing here. It also lets me choose if I'd like a different style chart or if I'd like to get rid of the charts altogether. And I can add additional summary cards based on this data. Now, let's go back, and this is a report that is kind of built for you. It's pre-configured. There's a little bit that you can do with it. But let's take a look at some of the additional reporting features that we have within Google Analytics. Let's talk about our Explore feature. This is actually a pretty cool one. We've been playing with this quite a bit in the last few days. So your explorations are going to be your report templates, if you will. They're blank canvases, and you can add any data fields that you're collecting. You can really make the reports your own. So the first one that I want, or really the one that I'd like to show you would be, and again, we can start with a blank report and you can create a report from scratch. I'll go ahead and view my template gallery and it'll just expand all of the reports that are available to me. I'm going to choose path exploration. This is a really neat one and one that I've used personally before. So what path exploration is it's showing you, okay, when someone starts, they start their session on my site. Where do they go from there? They go to page view, or excuse me, they go to a specific page. And what page do they go to after that? And what about after that? It's a really fun way to see how users are navigating your site. It's also a great way to see if navigating your site seems to be confusing for users, if it seems as though they bounce back and forth between different pages nonsensically. Maybe they're looking for something that they can't quite find. This data can be read in a bunch of different ways. So before we take a look at the data, let's take a quick view at what we're looking at here. It looks like a lot. A few of us are not the biggest fans of the interface that Google Analytics provides, but it's something that, we'll just have to learn to get used to over time. On the left, we have all of the items that we can use to add to our report or our visualization that we're building. On the left, we have our date range. So we see that I'm still covering that same date range. I also can choose from these dimensions that are listed. I can add additional dimensions by clicking the plus icon. So we can see the ones that I've already added or checked off. Many of these can be expanded. So demographics is expanded to show all of my demographic information. I can choose additional metrics. So the metrics are going to be those items that are going to be quantitative data where you can actually manipulate that, measure it out. And next to that, I have some additional identifiers to show, what items I'm actually showing on my path exploration. So if I change my event name to my page title and screen, it's actually going to show me the name of the page that I'm looking at. Now, from my session starts, so 220 people started a new session on my site. 149 of them went to the homepage. Some of them went directly to additional pages. Now, what that means is that they likely already had a pre-filled URL and just clicked enter when they navigated to your website, and they landed right on the login page, or they landed right on the About Us page. But most people go to the homepage. And then from the homepage, a handful of them will go ahead and log in. After they log in, they're redirected back to the homepage.
And then they might go to the control panel. That might be your admins. Maybe they're making a payment. All right, that could be a member making a payment, going to visit their member profile. Maybe they're updating their email address once and for all. So this is kind of a fun little way to see, again, how your website's navigation is faring. Okay, so let's go ahead and again, we'll just do a quick recap of what we've talked about and where we're going from here. So we talked about our acquisition session. How do users reach my website? How did they get here? Are they getting here by just typing in my website? Are they getting here by searching for me? Am I even appearing in Google search results? Engagement, what pages are users visiting? How long are they on those pages? Are they scrolling? Are they going back and forth between pages? Retention, how frequently do users revisit my website and for how long? And my apologies, I actually did not show retention. So we'll do one quick run back to Google Analytics. Now, I'm in this report viewer. On the left-hand side, you can see it kind of hides over there. That's our little flyout menu. I am going to go back into my report section. And we can see all of our familiar options on the side here: acquisition, engagement, monetization, and here is retention. So within retention, I can see who are my returning users, how many people are coming back. Ideally, you would like people to continue to come back to your website. So this is likely going to be a page that you might visit quite often. And in getting started, moving on from retention, we have our demographics. What are the demographics for our website visitors, and our real-time data view that allows you to view items again in real time. Let's also review our helpful tips. You probably aren't going to see data on your site for the first 48 hours. And your data thresholds might affect your reports. So when you're taking a look at how much data is available on your site, when you're looking at what data is being collected, if you don't have enough data, your reports may not be completely filled out. They may not be really accurate as far as predictions and insights until you have a little bit more data on your site. So when we were looking at our Northwest Balloon Club, we didn't have very much data populated there. Your website honestly might be very similar, even if you've had Google Analytics up and running for a long time. Perhaps your organization or your club is fairly medium-sized to small, and you just don't get a lot of traffic on your website. That's completely fine. There isn't a right way that your insights are supposed to look, and there isn't a wrong way. It's just a matter of this is what your website traffic looks like. You can create new GA4 properties right alongside your Universal Analytics properties. You don't have to get rid of your Universal Analytics properties, and you actually should not. If you get rid of those properties, you're not going to be collecting data. You also could potentially get rid of the data that has been collected already before you've had the chance to export it. Now, when you are creating custom events, you won't be able to apply the events if they require access to your website source code. Now, this might be a statement that is far over the heads of many people on this webinar. That's okay. If you know what a custom event is and you know what a custom dimension or conversion is, then this is for you. If you don't have access to the back end of that particular page, so for example, you don't have access to the code for module pages, so you won't be able to insert the script that you would need to follow that particular page, so you won't be able to apply that event. If there's ever a question that you have, just refer back to, do I have access to that space on my site? And if I don't, I'm probably not going to be able to collect that data point. Reports. Built-in report dashboards are things that you can sort and filter, and those explorations are going to be those customizable reports that you have available to you. You can build from scratch, or you can build from a template that's been made available. Universal Analytics, again, is going to stop processing your data July 1st, 2023. So with that in mind, let's talk about our helpful guides and where you can find all of this information. All of these links are going to be available within the description of our YouTube video. So when we post this YouTube video on our YouTube channel, we will have access to all of these links. These are also on the Google Analytics page within our help system. The last option on the drop-down list is going to be Google Analytics Help, and it'll link to all of these same features. So we have a lot of information on making the switch from Universal Analytics to Google Analytics 4, talking about all of the templates that you have available. One of the things that I want to highlight is the third option from the top, which is the Analytics Academy. That is something that both Devin and I have gone through just as a way to analytics. If you happen to have a LinkedIn Learning account, which is not free, they also have a lot of content that's organized really well. Google support is fantastic. All of the resources that are listed here are free, by the way. The Analytics Academy is essentially a course that you can take that Google has created for you to teach you how to use Google Analytics. The visuals are wonderful. The text is easy to follow. And we also have some information on connecting your Google Ads account to Google Analytics 4. So if you are using Google Ads, be sure to check that out, and exporting your Universal Analytics data. So remember, at the top and middle and bottom of this particular hour, we've talked about Google Analytics deprecating the legacy version, which is Universal Analytics. After July 1st, 2023, you will not be able to collect any further data. And 6 months after that, that data will be gone. So you have a really good chunk of time to export that data and to keep that for historical purposes. And Devin, I hesitate to ask, do we have any questions?
We have a few really good ones, actually.
Okay.
So one question we got was, how do we tell if you have Google Analytics, the Universal or GA4?
Good question. And I can show you a couple of different things. So within Google Analytics 4, you will have this little flyout menu, your admin option on the side. Within Universal Analytics, and I can go back into, let's go ahead and check out old Universal Analytics. Now, Universal Analytics does not have a flyout menu on the left-hand side. This is actually Google Analytics that I use to track the help system, help.clubexpress.com. So on the left-hand side, it does not have that flyout menu. It actually has a lot of additional options. So instead of being nested under reports, real-time audience acquisition behavior, all of those are available not nested. It's the same information. It's organized in a different way. You can see at the bottom, we have attribution and discover. We still have our admin option at the very bottom here, but a lot of this, and underneath that, we have customizations. So the interface is different. It's organized in a much different way. There are a lot of other differences in the way data is collected, but those don't affect the end user.
So another question we had was, where do I go to find my measurement ID?
Great question. So if we go back into admin and into our, let's see, is it our property settings? That's our property ID. Devin, do you want to help me out here?
Oh, it should be in data streams.
Data streams. And we go from properties to data streams. So that makes sense. So when you think of the order that we set all of this up in, now it's all making sense to us. So if we click on, here's our demo club. This is for the demo balloon club. And so we have our measurement ID here. And now you'll see that at the very top, we have data collection is active. Now, very quickly, I want to go back into the bike club. We'll go ahead and open that. And we're still in our data stream here. And if we click on this, we can still see our measurement ID, but we see that data isn't active. And it tells you just, hold your horses if you only set it up less than 48 hours ago.
So another note, this is kind of less of a question, more just a note about if you've been with ClubExpress for a long time. If you've been with ClubExpress for a number of years, when you go to your website options, you might see, instead of measurement ID, you might see Google Analytics account ID. Those are the same. Those are the same field. You can fill in your measurement ID into the Google Analytics account ID, and it'll work just the same. And then another question was, do we need to have the Google site verification ID as well in order for this to work? No, you do not. You do not need Google site verification in order for your reporting to function.
I'll just show that one more time. We've
Yeah,
got
so there's your
hard blank field for Google site verification ID, and we've only entered in our measurement ID.
And then someone asked, if a previous administrator set up Google Analytics on the website, is it possible to change that measurement ID to point to your own Google Analytics ID? And yes, that answer is simply just a yes. If you change that measurement ID and then you set up your own Google Analytics account to function and have all your dimensions set up, it should start seeing that information. Again, that is another situation where you would want to give it 48 hours to make sure that everything is coming through correctly, because it might take that lag time once you change the measurement ID. Let's see. We had a few questions about like how to actually get more information in the reports. Again, if you have questions about like building these reports out, we're going to have to point you to the actual Google support for that, because, you know, our team is already taxed with, you know, working on the ClubExpress system. The Google Analytics system has its own support tools. So if you're curious about like, you know, getting the most out of this, it's just a matter of, you know, spending the time with the Google support tools to learn the different report builders. And it has a lot of really powerful templates already in place that you can just kind of, you know, piggyback off of. How do we tell how people got to the site originally? That's one of the kind of, is it acquisition, Sam?
Yes, that would be acquisitions. And if we pop back into our demo club, we go into our reports. So a very quick way would be, how did they get to our site? Acquisition overview would give us just an overview with all of the individual cards. And the sessions would be what you would want to focus on, traffic acquisition. And that would show you how they're getting there initially, whether they're searching for you or whether they're just typing your website in directly.
Yeah. Someone else is asking how granular the data is. So like if they're on certain custom pages, if they're on photo albums, are they on a specific album? That's kind of a mixed bag. So if they're on a specific custom page, yes, we can. Anything you see kind of in those tabs up top on your browser, those page titles, that's one of the dimensions that you have to enter manually. And you can track exactly what page people are on. If they're looking at something in the site, that doesn't take them to a new page, it may not track exactly that detail. So like if they click the thumbnail for a photo album, it may not tell that what photo album they clicked on. Google Analytics does track clicks though, so you can see how many times someone clicked on a certain page. But in terms of like exactly what they're opening, I don't think it gets quite that detailed if they're staying on the same page. It's more about site traffic and who's going where. Less who, just how many. Is Google Analytics going to work with the ClubExpress mobile app? At the moment, I don't believe it does. That's something that we've talked to our development about, and it's kind of like in our purview, but at the moment, it does not. Will we be sending those Google links? Yes. So we might follow up an email with attendees. I'm not sure, but the easiest way to get all of those helpful links that Sam was showing, there's two ways. Once we put this video up on YouTube, we will have a link to all of those links in the YouTube description, or you can just go to our help system, help.clubexpress.com, and in the Google Analytics section that Sam is showing right now, there's all of those links to the different tools that Google has already for you. And there are dozens of hours worth of training and support and manuals and courses. And so if you're wanting to learn the Google Analytics tool, there's no shortage of materials out there for you to learn to get up to speed. I know it's frustrating if I have to tell you, I can't really fully explain every report, but we are here to show you kind of what it can do and how to get started. From there, it's kind of in your hands, and for support, it's in Google's hands.
People do make entire careers out of working with Google Analytics. So it's a whole separate job to learn how to do that entirely.
Yeah, we've had a few weeks to set up for this, and it's my brain boggles.
Yeah. And I've been working with Google Analytics for a couple of years now, and I know that I still don't know everything. So, you take it day by day. When there's a piece of information that I want to look for, that's when I decide that I'm going to take the time to research that specific thing. And as I have gone on over time, just like with anything, I pick up things here and there. Those insights are a really great way to do that too. So once those start popping up for you, definitely, take a look at those as Google gives them to you.
And it looks like the questions are slowing down. Another one we got is, can Google Analytics track usage of built-in modules? Kind of yes and no. Yes, in that we can track the traffic to those modules. So you can build a filter again on page titles. So you can say, page titles contains events to see how many people are using the events module, or page title contains storefront, and that would let you know how many people are going into the storefront. And then you can do things like unique visits so that you're only, counting one per person that visits that module in a certain time frame. So you can track how many people are actually getting into pages. So if you're having some sort of like advertising push on your website and you have a custom page you made to advertise an event, you can go in and look how many people are going to that specific page. Or if you're pushing your storefront, you can go in and plug in information and see how many people are actually going to your store page versus how many people are, say, getting to the payment page. Can you tell if someone got to your site from a Facebook link? Yes, that's one of the acquisition tools. You can tell maybe not the site they came from, but if you have a specific like ad push on Facebook, you can track Facebook marketing. And then is there any, so the page ID versus page name. Page name is almost always the easier way to go, because page ID is going to be for a very specific page, whereas limiting on page name is a bit broader, where you can say things like, page name contains event, and it gives you a broad selection of ClubExpress pages. When I've been using this tool, I've been using page name because I have just found it more useful. Page ID is still one of the dimensions that we need to report on in order to get accurate traffic reports, but it's not something I used as a filter very often. Does Google Analytics data interface with ClubExpress? So no, that's something I was answering a few questions, but the information stream is one direction. We are only sending information from ClubExpress to Google Analytics. Your ClubExpress webpage or your admin screens or anything like that are not going to get information back from Google Analytics. There's a lot of kind of privacy concerns that go into doing something like that. So there's, we draw a hard line on that. And I think our questions have slowed down.
All right. Well, with that being said, thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you for giving us a few extra minutes of your time today. We went a little bit long. This was a hefty topic. We appreciate everyone's questions. We have one of the reasons that we aggregated so much help is because we know that this is a topic that many people have not tackled in their copious amounts of spare time. So take a look at those help items, read through those guides, maybe pop into the Analytics Academy and familiarize yourself with all of the tools that are available. Thank you for attending our webinar. We will have this posted to our YouTube channel within the next few days, and that will, like Devin said, include all of those help links. So without further ado, thanks for joining, and we'll see you in the next webinar. Bye, everyone.